So now we're going to talk about substance impairment. So that could be alcohol, drugs, prescription drugs, even taking cough syrup where it says may cause drowsiness, you know, that type of a thing. So when you're impaired, legally at 0.08, the government has said you will be an impaired driver. Okay. I've seen people, I wouldn't want them to drive, I wouldn't want to get in the car with them or anything, and they've had half a beer. Just how it affects you, how your chemical makeup inside.
Everybody's different.
Everybody's different, right? So you kind of have to know yourself as well.
Okay.
So I think a good rule of thumb, especially with GDL drivers, is zero tolerance. Right? You have nothing, then you have nothing to worry about. Right?
There's always that one video, you know, they'll show like commercials. I don't know if y'all remember that commercial with all the bottles. It's just that driving commercial. And all
each bottle gets in front of you and it becomes more and more impaired.
Yeah. They'll always stress about how driving impaired is like just bad and just don't do it, and the effects that can come from it and the catastrophic, you know, results that can arise if you are to drive with a couple drinks inside of you, or if you're smoking on marijuana, thinking you cool with your friends or whatever.
Alcohol is one thing, but as you said, there's a ton of different ways that you can be impaired.
There always has been provisions for impairment by drug. I hope they realize it's the same as drinking and driving, right? It's not like having a cigarette. It's like having a glass of liquor.
And they think because they smoke it all the time, they build up this tolerance or whatever it is, but at the end of the day, you're still impaired.
Right.
Why would you go through all the effort of making sure you have a designated driver who's not drinking when, you know, you're willing to get in the car with somebody who's been smoking weed? You know, at the end of the day, suddenly it's a wash.
I think nowadays it's easier for people to get across town and get to where they need to go because we have like Uber and taxis and stuff like that.
Well, I think you touched on it, like when we're talking about designated drivers, nobody's ever going to say that, listen, like, don't drink. Nobody is going to say like, okay, well, you know, you're in school, well, you're not going to drink. The key is that if you've got a designated driver, all right, well, at least that means that you're going to get to and from where you want to be safely. If you're going to be able to get to and from safely and make sure that you not only keep yourself safe, but keep everybody around you safe, that's the key. And that designated driver is something that I got told when I was a kid, not even when I was going through junior high or high school, but when I was a kid, we talked about, you know, having a DD around, having Ubers, having taxis here. You know, if you're in a city, that makes a lot of sense. But what happens for all these rural kids that are outside of town? They don't have that for them. They just need to make sure that they've got a designated driver, and that designated driver is super important. You can't be out having a shot, you know, before you decide to be the DD. That's going to be the big difference between being able to get where you want safely and ending up either getting to visit a police officer in a jail, or rolling a car and hurting yourself or hurting somebody else.
Right. And I feel that my parents, they always say that, well, they've had so much driving experience that they know when they're impaired and they can handle themselves and whatnot. But that's kind of what gets into your head, that you feel that if you've been driving for 2 years, 3 years, 15, 20 years, that driving is almost secondhand. That if you're a little bit tired, well, I know this well enough, I can handle it. And I feel there's even some danger that comes along with that as well. Absolutely.
The attitude, it'll never happen to me.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm a good driver. So yeah, that's something to be always mindful of.
That overconfidence, I think, affects a lot of people, and I mean, we see it on the racetrack as well. As a lot of our accidents that we see out there tends to be overconfidence, or where their ambition outweighs their skill. That same sort of thing happens with us, and I can't imagine being on the racetrack and being impaired. I can't even fathom it. I don't know about you.
We're no strangers to being tired at the racetrack. I mean, whether it's a late night working on the car, or sometimes we travel overnight and leave Friday afternoon and have to be at a race for Saturday morning. But part of that is recognizing symptoms in yourself. So for me, if I know that I'm exhausted and that I can't safely operate my vehicle, sometimes that means leaning on my race team and letting them do some of the heavy lifting during the day so that when it comes time to races, I'm focused and I'm attentive, because, you know, if it only takes 5 seconds, you know, or less to look away, to blink a little bit longer than you would, and suddenly you're somewhere that you're not expected to be. So,
like for you, life goes by pretty quick at 250 miles an hour.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
So people talk about ways to prevent being, the effects of intoxication. And I've heard before that most of them are incorrect. So, drinking coffee, eating bread, those might not be enough to combat the effects of alcohol. Is that true?
Time. That's the only thing that combats the effects. I've had people try to eat the phone books, try to eat their shirts. Oh yeah, you name it. They're trying to do whatever they can to try to sober up, but all it is time. As a rule of thumb, 1 drink being 1 ounce of hard liquor or 1 beer, 1 glass of wine per hour will keep you at a legal limit, but it takes time after that to try to wear that off. Right? Depends on if you ate food or, and that's the unfortunate part is you'll see somebody, great person, never been in trouble with the law before, right after work, might have been celebrating something with some buddies after work. They go out for a couple of drinks and he hasn't eaten all day. And then he's driving home, gets pulled over through a check stop or something like that, and he is now blowing over, he's impaired.
Wow.
Right? So I mean, it can turn your life around that fast.
As a firefighter, I've seen it before where you have the worst case scenario. And I've seen it where a gentleman's driving home after being at a family event. He has his wife and 2 kids inside the van, and they end up rolling a vehicle in the ditch. And that's the thing that I think a lot of people, they forget about. They think about the getting caught, not about what is it that could possibly happen to myself, what is possibly going to happen to my family, what's going to happen to somebody else's family. And that's the thing that I think everybody needs to kind of give a little bit of thought to, is that just getting caught and having your insurance go up and paying for the fines and paying for the lawyers, that's terrible.
That's best case scenario.
Yeah. Paying for it with, the death of a family member or killing somebody else, that's way worse.
So if I see impaired driving, what kind of steps can I help to make sure that they don't stay on the road any longer? How can I contact police? Do I call 911 if I see someone impaired?
Yeah, that's right. Dial 911
Okay.
and just say, following an impaired driver.
Okay.
And they will keep you on the line and ask you all sorts of questions. And
Okay.
yeah. And at that point, it's not illegal to talk on your phone and drive.
Really? Okay. So I do continue to follow them in a safe manner and keep you guys on speakerphone.
That's right.
What happens if it's a friend, a friend or a family member, and you know that they're leaving a venue after they've been drinking? Are those calls completely anonymous? And can you say, I know that there's somebody leaving from this address right now who's had too much to drink?
Yeah, it's a very, very tough call to make. We do get them. You have to look at it as the responsible thing to do, more than, I'm trying to get somebody into trouble or something like that. But you just think of it yourself. If you're walking down White Avenue, you're crossing the street, would you not expect every vehicle to be stopping for you? Or if you're driving down the road, would you not expect everybody around you to be able to drive the way you're driving, right? So you have that right, you have that expectation. Mm-hmm. So that's what you're doing, is you're preventing these people, whether it's a friend, it's a family member. You know what, if you talk to them in the past and they still don't get the message, then you got to show a little more tough love. Right? Yeah, it's because you care about your friends or your family that you actually want to try to stop them.